One of the most beloved little birds, the black-capped chickadee is pretty common in most of North America. Belonging to the Paradis family, these cute birds aren't migratory, staying year-round in their range, providing birders ample opportunity to observe interesting behavior. As some of you know, I've had many close relationships with these precious little birds. For the entirety of my 11-year experience watching wild birds, their curious way of allowing people to observe them up close has provided me much enjoyment and a great experience watching the fascinating habits they display. Black-capped chickadees are easy to recognize. Look for their black bib and cap, white belly, gray back, and a hint of tan on their flanks. Measuring around 5 to 6 inches and weighing just half an ounce or lower, these smart birds are very small. Their oversized round head, stout bill, and rounded body are typical of all chickadees and one big contributing factor for why many people see them as cute. There is no obvious difference between males and females. They both look the same, but females tend to be slightly smaller. They are very similar to other chickadees, but usually it's easy to tell them apart due to different color patterns. The only ones that would cause confusion are the Carolina chickadee, which is smaller and sounds a little different, and the mountain chickadee, which has a white stripe above its eye. Outside of their family, birds like the white-breasted nuthatch and black-polled warblers can be easily mistaken for black-capped chickadees. However, they are not as large as the white-breasted nuthatch and do not creep along the trunk of trees. And black-polls are streakier, lack a black bib, aren't as plump, and have a smaller head. Sometimes the red-breasted nuthatch may be falsely thought to be a chickadee too, which are of similar size, but the differences are very obvious when seen side by side. The diet of these birds is pretty varied, with them changing what they eat depending on the season. One major source, especially over summer, is insects, which make up 90% of their diet and include lice, grub, beetles, and moths, as well as the eggs, larvae, and pupae of these invertebrates. Since they eat a great deal of insects, chickadees contribute to population control, helping to benefit the ecosystem and humans. In the winter, they switch their diet to mostly vegetable, like seeds of native trees. Insects during this time only account for around 50% of what they consume. The occasional fruit, like crabapple and berries, are additional sources of nourishment. But probably the most important thing that helps sustain them during a time when there isn't much around to eat is all the cached food items they stuffed under the bark or in the lichen of trees over late summer and fall, a time when food is more plentiful. Remarkably, each autumn, chickadees hide thousands of food items away. Each piece is hidden in a different spot, and they can remember most, if not all of them. It's an incredible feat that is thanks to their very good spatial memory, as well as the increase in the size of their hippocampus every fall to allow them to remember all the places they've hidden their food. A useful ability to have, since forgetting these stored seeds can be a matter of life and death for them. They can remember their caches for as long as up to a month after they've hidden them. They can also recall which caches they've already emptied. Not only does the hoarder of this food benefit, but another bird or animal that comes across one of these caches do too, pointing to another integral role they play in the habitat. Watching these birds search for and eat food can be fun, as they use their acrobatic ability to hang upside down as they retrieve a tasty morsel or enjoy a berry, and cling on sideways to a limb, pecking at the bark in search of little insects. Thanks to a stout bill, they can easily probe the cones of tamaracks and other trees for their seeds. One other source of food for chickadees come from people who put up backyard feeders filled with black oil sunflower seeds, peanuts, and suet. Many people wholeheartedly welcome these birds to their feeders since they are such pleasant guests, coming and going as they collect a seed, sometimes even stopping long enough to eat. On the cold, short days of winter, chickadees feed a lot more to stay alive and healthy. Any extra energy from food that isn't used during the day for moving around is stored as fat. They can pack on more than half their weight in fat on one winter day. This allows them to survive over the long cold night while they rest. Each morning, they start the day with their fat stores all burned up and repeat the process. For this reason, feeders can be of some importance to them over the cold season. Seeing these delightful birds in a natural setting shouldn't be hard since they live in a variety of habitats, such as deciduous and mixed forest, open woods, parks, and disturbed areas. Typically, there are at least 2 birds in an area, which is especially true in summer. Over winter, though, there can be several individuals in a flock. One interesting thing to watch for is their well-established dominance hierarchies. The mated pair is at the nucleus of the banditry, a term used to describe a flock of chickadees due to their masked faces. The male of the pair is the dominant one of all the individuals within the group. Everyone acts accordingly to each of their own ranks. Some of these chickadees may be offspring from that year, but more often it's non-breeders without their own mate or other young birds from nearby areas. A great thing about watching for chickadees is the fact that many other species often mingle with them, giving birders a chance at seeing other birds. Woodpeckers, kinglets, creepers, warblers, nuthatches, and other chickadee species are common birds to see hanging out with black-capped chickadees in winter. One way to locate a flock is to listen for their calls. The most common and easy to recognize is their namesake chickadee dee-dee call, which, as researchers have discovered over the years, serves many functions. It can communicate to one another when a predator is around, what type of predator it is, if it's moving or not, and also it's used to locate one another. When spotting a potential threat like a hawk, they will add more Ds at the end of the call, with as many as 20 Ds being added if it's a northern saw-whet owl, or as little as 5 to 10 if it's a large bird of prey like a great horned owl that wouldn't be much of a threat to a bird as small and quick as a chickadee. Almost constantly, these birds keep in contact with one another by using a low and short Seet sound. As spring nears, males start singing the Feebee song to attract a mate or impress the mate he already has, and to establish territory. They also use another call that is considered a song, the Gargle call. This is often given during aggressive displays and has many of the same functions as songs do. Females make a broken D call as they near egg laying. During this time, the male will feed his mate as part of courtship feeding. Once mate selection is done, the pair will stay together for many years on the same territory. The female chooses the nest site, usually an old rotted snag or dead part of a tree, and they often pick alder or birch, typically between 1.5 and 7 meters high, but it can be much higher or lower. Both dig out the hole with their strong bills, carrying the wood chips away from the nest, as to not attract predators. They will also use nest boxes suited to them, more often choosing ones that have wood chips in the bottom, not sawdust, as this can be dangerous to them. They will remove the wood chips as if they were excavating their own nest. After that is completed, the female will begin bringing back moss to build a foundation for the nest to be made on. Things such as rabbit fur from a nearby carcass are readily taken advantage of to use as soft bedding for her eggs. Using her body, she molds the fur into a cup shape. Once the nest is complete, anywhere from 1 to a dozen eggs may be laid, and she will not begin incubation until they are all deposited. This is done to ensure they all hatch close in time to one another. The eggs are very small, just about 1/2 inch in length and width, and are white with fine brownish spots. 2 weeks after the female begins warming them, the eggs hatch. At this point, the male gets busy finding food to bring back to the nest. There is a threat of predators getting into the nest, and if that happens, the female will do something that is called the snake display. It's quite a dramatic one, with hissing sounds, striking at the intruder, and swaying back and forth. If she is lucky, the predator will leave. It shows the risk they take when raising their young. For this reason, make sure entrance guards are installed to the outside of the hull of a nest box to prevent intruders from getting inside. In just 1 hour, the male can return to the nest 6 to 14 times with food. When arriving, he uses a quiet version of the Feebee song to let his mate know that he is there. For the next 2 to 3 weeks, the babies grow at a rapid rate and begin flapping their wings leading up to fledging. To encourage the babies to leave the nest, the father makes the quiet Feebee song, assuring them they can make the big leap. Once all the babies have fledged, the parents continue to feed them for an additional month or so. Only 1 brood is produced by a pair each year. There are some years, though, when the insects are plentiful that they will try for a second brood after successfully raising the first. For people interested in my full Nestbox experience with Feebee and Filbert, I'll leave a link at the end. Black-capped chickadees are very common, and the population is stable, with Partners in Flight estimating their numbers at 41 million. Beneficial factors that help them are forest clearing for agriculture, which increases the amount of forest edge that can improve chickadee habitat. It's really important that land managers don't cut too many dead trees out of forests, since chickadees rely on these for cavities to nest and roost in. On average, chickadees live around 2 and 3 years in the wild, but many individuals live for much longer. The oldest recorded black-capped chickadee was a male who was banded in 2002 in Minnesota, and recaptured and re-released in 2011 in the same state. He was 11 years and 6 months old. And since he was re-released, who knows how much longer he lived. Over the years, I've known several chickadees, and many have lived 5 years, but the longest I've known one is Bud, a male that I've started observing on his territory in 2012. Black-capped chickadees are one of the most awesome birds around. They are very social, have complex vocalizations that may contain some of the characteristics of human language, and are pretty friendly, often curiously checking out people. When most other birds leave for winter, they stay, giving people of all ages a wonderful chance to get to witness their charming antics. It's no wonder so many people love these little birds. Many individual black-capped chickadees have made a huge impression on me, enriching my whole birding experience and helping to lead me into a world I did not know was possible. The one who started it all was Alpha, a male I knew from summer 2011 until July 2015. He would always hide seeds on me, in the cuff of my coat, between my leg and boot. When I'd go home, I'd take off my outdoor clothes. Some of his seeds would fall out on the floor. Jamie used to laugh at that and say, "Alpha busy hiding seeds on you today?" I really loved that little guy, and I also thought a lot of his timid little mate, Maxine, who I knew from summer 2011 until March 2015. I also got to know some of their children, such as Chicklet, who came from their second brood in 2013. He copied everything his dad did, and I knew him for 2 years before he moved on his own to a territory to be a fully independent chickadee. His sister from the same brood, Tiny, was a precious one too. Unlike Chicklet, Tiny remained in my life for 5 years, her and her sweet mate Tim. Those chickadees were the ones that made the biggest impact on my experience. Now in my life, I keep up with Tiny and Tim's son, Mini Tim, who has been around since 2017. Bud, a male chickadee I suspect came from Alpha and Maxine. As I mentioned, he is the oldest chickadee I've ever known. And finally, Feebee and Filbert, a pair that lives close to my home, the same territory Alpha and Maxine once ruled. To those who stuck around to hear about my connection with those individual chickadees, thank you. I can never really express properly in words what those little birds have done for me. Knowing them on the level that I have is remarkable. And I am so grateful that Jamie, my love and best friend, has and continues to be a big part of this experience. Thank you, Jamie. What is your favorite thing about the friendly black-capped chickadee? Comment below, and as always, I hope that you enjoyed the video. And for those interested in the Nestbox experience, it's on the screen there now. Thank you for watching. Happy birding!